Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And this is a brand new series that I'm starting called Chels Unscripted, where I'm going to be going live every Monday at 7 p.m. UK time, just to be able to interact with you guys a bit and go over what's happening at Chelsea. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. Recently, unfortunately, not so much good things to talk about, but I'm super excited to be joined by my friend Nina, who's also a Chelsea fan. So Nina, thanks so much for joining me. How's it going?
Thank you for inviting me, Ellie. Well, it was going good until about last week. Well, to be fair, was it even going good, or were we just sort of blindly saying that it's going good and hoping that it might at some point? But yeah, I feel like being a Chelsea fan just comes with that recently, in the last year especially, just a roller coaster. But you know, we've chosen our team, we've committed to it. So through thick and thin, you know, supporting, here we are.
Here we are, and there's definitely a lot to talk about. Hi, Steven in the chat. Thanks so much for joining. And if you guys have any questions, comments, put them right in the chat so that we can talk about them as well. But I want to start off with that Everton game. Just such a frustrating performance, because it kind of feels like the story of our season, that we have a lot of possession in a game, but then we just don't do anything with it. We get punished, the team sits back, and then they even might go on to get a goal, and at that point the game's just dead. So what did you make of the Everton game?
Yeah, I feel like we set up well. I was pretty happy with the lineup. Thought we had some fresh legs in there. You know, Mudryk starting, and I thought, great, he's going up against Ashley Young. He can definitely outrun him, like pace. He's got it. And yeah, something new. It's not exactly like recently our forwards have been bagging lots of goals. So why not give an opportunity to Mudryk? And to be fair, I haven't been Sterling's biggest fan either. And I always say I'm not the quickest to like toot his horn and hail him, because he just goes missing afterwards. And that's the case. That's how it's been with Sterling, and I have like higher expectations for him, because he's meant to be our literal veteran in the squads. With Thiago Silva, Raheem Sterling is up there with the experience, so I'm never going to cut him any slack and excuses like I will for the players that have just maybe arrived. But great, you know, Badiashile in our back line, Thiago Silva getting a rest. So the way we set up, I think, was fine. There was no problems and issues with that. But then I think the actual game itself is where it went wrong. I think it was very flat at times. We were creating, but again, it just seemed like no one was in the middle. When Breuer started, he was gravitating towards the wings too much, if you noticed. And then Jackson did the same when he came. So it's like, okay, like people are creating and setting you up, but nobody is in the middle. Like, what are we doing here? And, you know, Everton want you to have the ball. They want you to have possession, because they know that, you know, given the opportunity on a counter or something like that, they are there. I think they had like, 3-4 shots in that game, and they won 2-0. That tells you everything you need to know.
That's really depressing. I didn't realize that. But I think you're so right, because we look at the starting 11, and on paper it looks good, and I don't have any complaints, and I go into the matches pretty happy with the starting 11 that I'm seeing. Got Conor Gallagher obviously back. We missed him massively versus Man United, and then we just see that the team really isn't creating so many opportunities or so many chances. And one of the things that I noticed, kind of what you were saying, is that we don't have so many bodies in the box. And I feel like other teams, when they play against us, I see like 5-6 bodies in the box at any given time. And for us, it just feels like we're hesitant to get forward. I don't know why that is, but did you have any standout performers from that match? Anybody who maybe salvaged a bit of a performance?
Well, we're really trying to keep this positive, aren't we?
We're gonna go into it as well. Don't worry about it.
Well, I think Badiashile looks good on the most part. I think he does provide some sort of composure in the back line, and I really like him on the ball as well. He provides some aerial dominance as well, which is always more than welcome, particularly when we're faced with like set pieces and stuff. I thought Mudryk wasn't as bad as people make him out to be. I mean, I don't know if we watched the same game or not, but people, I think, are overly critical with Mudryk. I think he was trying. Palmer was trying again, not their best games, but when you're not supported like by the whole team, it's hard for you to stand out as a player as well and shine through. And I'm pretty sure at one point Palmer just stopped trying as well because he saw that it wasn't really getting anywhere. The players around him weren't helping him out, and yeah, I just think as a collective, we haven't looked like a collective in many games that we've seen. And often we talk about individual certain players that put on good performances, but maybe Man City is the only game you can argue where we really did look like a cohesive team. And I guess that's the problem. You know, it's the fact that we have individuals of potential, but at the moment we're not able to gel as a team, and Pochettino hasn't unlocked that yet, it seems.
Yeah, and I think that that's maybe the biggest thing that I keep saying week in, week out is that we do have these really young players in our team, and we
Mhm.
basically overhauled the entire starting 11 or even the entire team. You have so many new players. I was struggling even to figure out who was who when we first started this season because we had so many new players. I didn't recognize anybody, I didn't recognize the numbers. And
Yeah.
we have the youngest squad, I think, in the Premier League. So, of course, you're going to have maybe some inconsistencies. And that's really frustrating as a Chelsea fan because we're so used to winning and we don't want to go through this. But the way I kind of think about this, and maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, is that we're kind of at the point where Arsenal were 2, 3 years ago, that they finished so low. And then now they're coming back and they had a brilliant season last season and they're fighting for trophies this season. And at least my opinion is that we kind of have to go through these growing pains and stick with it. But
Mm.
what do you think? I think that I'm kind of like in the minority here.
Yeah. No, do you know what? That's so fair because otherwise you crawl into the mindset of you're doomed and we're doomed forever. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with not believing in this process anymore, really, because what is there to show you that we are headed in the right direction? Like, they are obvious question marks. But, you know, Eddie, I was thinking the same as you yesterday. I thought, I'm 22. I've grown up watching Chelsea be successful, lift trophies. Who am I to complain that we're going through like a really bad season where nothing is going our way and we might be out of Europe for another season? And then I thought, but is that me being overly accepting of what is becoming a very mediocre Chelsea mid-table team? And I'm almost sitting on the fence here. You know, part of me wants to just believe that every club, like you say, has to go through these patches, and we are working on a new regime. So why on earth would it be as easy and as replicating of, you know, how it was with Abramovich when we've literally gone through a takeover of ownership, and frankly they've installed this plan and this ideology for us to believe in, to work towards. And, you know, whether it's successful or not, I still think it's too soon to for definitely for a fact say that it has absolutely failed. And frankly, even if we do say that and admit it, then we're stuck because, like I said, we've brought in players that we've signed for 7, 8, 9 year deals. We got in trouble with FFP because we wanted to do this so badly. You know, we sacked Graham Potter because he wasn't the man. We brought in Frankie to lift the spirit. We appointed Pochettino to be the guy that is now the right guy, apparently, for the project. So it almost seems like we're going to set ourselves up for failure if we right now stop believing. But then at the same time, do we actually, or will we actually accept finishing 12th again for another season? Is that actually healthy?
Yeah, I know. I really hope that we don't finish 12th. But I'm looking at the
So do
table and
I.
both the teams ahead of us are looking so much
Really
better.
good.
I think that and look at Everton, like they got the points deduction. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish ahead of us come the end of the season, honestly, because
Yeah.
they have that team spirit and they just have that grit. It just seems that Chelsea are missing that bit. I think that we've had a bit of a mentality issue over the past couple of years as well. But I don't know. I tend to be like more on the not like positive side, maybe like optimistic or hopeful, maybe blindly so that like things are going to work out and it will get better. And I'm just kind of like, okay, we have these talented players. They're super young and they're not going to hit their prime for probably another like 3 to 5 years realistically. So I'm hoping that if they have a year of playing together at the very least, that's going to help us like spur on and get something because I don't, it's not surprising to me that we're struggling So we put in team performances because we are very, very decent teams. And people are saying there's no excuses. Like, look at Spurs, look at Aston Villa. They haven't had the squad like overhaul that Chelsea have had. We've had everybody has left, all of the key players, all of the leaders, all of the more senior players. There really is just Thiago Silva, Raheem Sterling, and then maybe Ben Chilwell and Reece James who are out injured all of the time. So I don't know. I think that a part of the issue as well is that Chelsea just have a lack of leaders at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it was almost too quick, too soon. Like the transition was immediate. It wasn't, okay, we get rid of maybe Jorginho, maybe Kovacic, then we sort of address everything else, you know, Aspilicueta, obviously, because that was coming too. But it's almost like you strip the whole team of leaders and then you expect them to ease into the squad. And frankly, like you said, Thiago Silva is the only man that's doing that job. And, you know, it's almost unfair to expect that from him as well. But I mean, people keep saying the old Chelsea, but what old Chelsea? Like you said yourself, we don't have any players anymore from the old regime. Thiago Silva, okay, he's going to be the last of them, but next year he's going to be gone too. So what old Chelsea are we really talking about here? Because I think we all accepted that it was time for refreshment, that we are going to, like, this was overdue, you know, like refreshing midfield was an Abramovich problem that we left too late. And that's why we almost kind of found ourselves here in trying to get everyone to leave the door and replace them just in 1 year. And look, nobody really complains about how we went in the transfer window. At least I know I didn't, because it seemed exciting. You know, we were on the right track. We were looking for these youngsters as our new profile of players. And now people are like, yeah, but where's the old Chelsea? But we can't almost be in two minds with, oh, we want to have what we did have, and at the same time we want something new. We want to stop changing managers every 5 months. And it's like, you can't have both. And I understand that, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to accept this and that this is all okay, but you almost can't long for what it used to be. Like, this is a whole new thing, and whether it's going to be successful, time will tell. At the moment, it looks far from it, but it's really hard to keep saying, oh, the old Chelsea, the old Chelsea. The old Chelsea's gone. That's it.
Yeah, like, this is the new reality, sadly, for us. And I do think that we're going to be struggling. And I foresaw this happening, as much as I hate saying it. Like, with young players, normally you might have one or two young players that are incorporated into your squad, and you see that they have really good games and then some games that they're just inconsistent. But that's basically just happening with our entire squad because they're all young players. So
yeah,
I saw this. So what do you think of the Poch out kind of stances that people are already calling for his head just 5-6 months into his reign?
I don't back it, and I won't, because like I said, everyone's talking about, oh, the old Chelsea, but the old Chelsea still was a problem. You know, chopping and changing managers every 5 months is not healthy. It's not okay. This is what we're trying to stray away from with this new regime. And yes, the ownership got the first decision with the manager wrong, hence why Graham Potter had to be sacked halfway through the season. But you know, that still doesn't mean that assigning sort of Pochettino for this job means that immediately when things go south and then they don't seem to be working on the pitch, that's it. And you know, people want to have Poch out because it's the only thing you can change immediately. You know, you can't change the owners, they're here to stay. You can't change all the players because we just brought them in, and you know, we will be a lot more in trouble financially if we even try to attempt that. If anything, it's going to cause so much more havoc with new players coming in and completely overturning this squad, which have barely played football together for about 3-4 months. So the only thing you can say to change instantly is, yes, sack Pochettino. But to anyone that's Poch out, what next? What changes? If you think that a manager's going to come in and get us, maybe it might be like a fresh bounce. Maybe we might go and win 3 games in a row. But then what? The problems that we do have are still going to be there. If anything, the players are going to lose trust in the project as well, because if you're trying to work with someone, he's trying to implement a style for you to play, and then they get sacked the next day. What are these young players thinking, you know, about the club, the ownership, the ideology? How are they meant to trust this process if the man that's trying to teach them how to play football, leaves the door tomorrow? So it causes more havoc than good. And everyone was happy with Pochettino. Yes, not the richest trophy cabinet, but in terms of what he's shown to do with young players, you know, at Tottenham and at PSG too, we like that. You know, that's what we needed, developing young players. And it's just actually abysmal to think that we are December time and people are already, Poch out, and I won't back it. I can't.
Is really funny to me as well because I put the exact same thing on Twitter and on Instagram, basically backing Poch and saying exactly what we've been saying, that it's a process, that it's going to take time, and I'm like here to just support the team through it. And on Twitter, everybody was saying, no, like Poch out, that's delusional, blah, blah, blah. And on Instagram, everybody was like, yeah, like I tend to agree with you. Or if they disagreed, it was like very well articulated. So I think it really depends as well who you surround yourself with. And I just want to shout out Josh here. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm glad that we're not alone in how we're thinking about this as well. Um, so one of Hagen here says, not having experience and relying on young players was a decision made. It can't be used as an excuse when the club is flirting with
Yeah,
relegation after
preach.
spending $1 billion. Arsenal are a young team too. They are a young team, but they're already 3 or 4 years into their process with Arteta, in my opinion. Like they went through their hard times, and that's kind of where we are now. They finished eighth, I think, twice in a row. So that's kind of what Chelsea are looking at the moment. Like we all have maybe a bit of recency bias looking at what they are now, but look at where they came from, and we were all making fun of Arsenal a couple of years ago because of where they are. But
We still make
yes,
fun of them.
maybe if we can like get a result against them. But I do agree that the new owners knew what they should have known, at least I would think, what they were getting into, and had this policy of not buying anybody over 25. And I think that maybe they're seeing this is what happens when you don't buy more experienced players. And one of the other things that I don't think that this is necessarily an excuse, but it's just like too shocking to me, is the amount of injuries that Chelsea have had. I feel like we've had minimum 8 injuries at any given time, and it's a bit odd. I don't quite know what's going on, but do you think that the injury crisis is affecting how Chelsea are playing as well?
Maybe, but I don't even want to use injuries as an excuse because every Premier League side this season has been plagued with so many injuries and have had key players out, and they still are in the top 10. And, frankly, we brought enough players to have depth so that injuries wouldn't be a problem. I know it doesn't seem that way because we literally have our left back and our right back and what are meant to be first teamers and are meant to be really integral in the squad constantly out. Someone like Christopher Nkunku, who came in, brightened up pre-season, literally lit it up, made us and sold us this dream about what the Premier League's going to look like, and then didn't even make it into the first fixture. Lavia, another one that came in, have not seen him on the pitch. So, yes, as much as it's really hard and it's annoying and it's heartbreaking to not have these players with us, I still think we should have enough quality on the pitch with the money we've spent with the players and the youngsters that we've brought in to still be able to put out performances. So for me, I don't even blame injuries anymore. Last season, yeah, I would have, because frankly, at one point we had 11 players out and you turn to the bench and we didn't ever have a bench. We had like academy players on the bench, and that's a real problem. But, you look at even some of the games this season, Ellie, like if you remember Newcastle, I remember looking at their bench and looking at ours. We had so many first teamers on that bench and they barely had any players I could recognise, and they still beat us. So it comes to a time where you have to look into the mirror and say that, is injuries just an excuse?
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think for me, like the injuries to the back line have just been so detrimental because it
Yeah.
feels like we're constantly chopping and changing that back line. Whereas it seems like the middle of the pitch is a bit more stable. The attack is more stable. We have options, we have depth there. But the fact that we kind of have Reece James out, Malo Gusto out on the right hand side. So you have both of your right hand players out. You have Cucurella filling in as a right back when he's a left back. I think he's out injured now as well. Then Ben Chilwell's out injured. I don't know. It's just like I really wonder what's happening that's causing Chelsea
Yeah.
to have so many injuries as well. Like, is it something that's happening in training? Is it because there was an overhaul of the medical staff? Like, what's the reason? But what do you make of Reece James' injury? Because that one is, he's when he's fit, he's, in my opinion, one of the best players in the world, one of the best right backs in the world, but he hasn't been fit, and it's so frustrating. So what are your thoughts about his injury and maybe what Chelsea should do in that right back spot?
It's frustrating, you know. And to be fair, if I can big up recruitment on one thing this summer, it's bringing in Malo Gusto, because when Reece James was injured the first time this season, because there's obviously been many times, but the very first time he was out, Malo Gusto stepped up big time, in my opinion, and I almost didn't even want him to be benched when Reece was fit. That's how good he was performing when, he had to step up and really like dealing with some of the Prem's best wingers and shutting them down on the most part, looking bright. And imagine if we hadn't made that signing, like what would we have seen play right back permanently? And then that's when you ask questions. So at least, yeah, one good thing. But what's the phrase that availability is the best ability, is it? And it's coming to a point. Well, yeah, there you go. A little word. It's not original though. Don't think that. I mean, definitely stealing someone else's quote here, but it applies, because there comes a time where if you don't have your captain injured and he's never on the pitch, he's causing more inconsistency than consistency. Then you have to ask questions. And maybe it was too soon for Reece James to have the captain armband, because frankly, when you don't actually have a captain on, like, we literally went through having Reece, then Gallagher, then Levi Colwill in 3 consecutive games as captain, and 2 of them got sent off as well, which was absolutely lovely. And I couldn't help but be angry with Reece in that game, especially because I was like, fair enough, it's out of your control when you're out and injured. There's nothing you can do. But did you even have to make that silly mistake where you cost us another game for a different reason? And yeah, I mean, it's really becoming an issue, isn't it? And the fact that obviously Gusto's out and injured now as well. I mean, yeah, you mentioned injuries, but that is proof. And we have to play players out their favoured position. It's there's just nothing else we can do. But, you know, like, what next? I mean, Reece moving forward, if he can't play more than 3 games in a row, then yeah, I think it's going to cause problems. And you feel for him as well, because he's still in that moment where he's meant to be at the peak of his career. You know, I almost felt so bad for him, you know, cutting his, well, obviously he didn't make it to the World Cup, did he, because of his injury as well. And it's things like that where, you know, they do trip up your mentality. You do feel sorry for them, but at the same time, maybe he should have just gone and had that surgery, you know, just before summer.
Yeah, it's hard because I can't even imagine what he's going through, kind of being named Chelsea captain. That's surely something that he could have only dreamed about at some point, and was super excited about it. Now he just finds himself unable to stay fit, and it must be really taxing, both mentally and physically, to be continuously getting injured. I don't know, like, I'm not a medical professional. I don't know if he needed surgery, if that was an option.
We could do a better job.
But like, it just seems like whatever he's doing right now in terms of the rehabilitation, he's consistently getting injured. He's consistently having the knee and the hamstring, and like, something needs to be done. So at this point, if he were to need surgery, I would much rather that he's out for 3 to 4 months. He gets the surgery, or however long it needs to be. He gets done whatever he needs to get done, and then he can come back stronger, because it's not helping anybody when he's constantly like in and out of the team. In terms of captaincy as well. So we have an interesting comment here from Terry. He said, I did not agree making James the captain and Chilwell the vice captain. Injury prone players, and James hasn't played 3 games in a row since 2021. I don't know if that's the truth. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, which is quite sad. I haven't verified this. But what did you think about making Reece James captain and Ben Chilwell captain? And do you think that maybe Chelsea should have looked at some other profile players instead?
I mean, I didn't oppose to it, but a part of me wished that maybe Thiago Silva had the captaincy this season, just because obviously it probably almost definitely is his last, and he deserves it. Like, for me, Thiago Silva is the captain anyway without the armband. You know, he's the most vocal on the pitch. He's the one that cares the most. He's the one that has proved his loyalty, and we don't doubt him. And I mean, he would have deserved it. You know, Reece James, we like to think and believe he's here to stay at Chelsea. You know, he's got all the years in the future to be captain and to have that up his sleeve. But well, yeah, literally no pun intended, on his arm and stuff. But it is a shame that you can't have a fit captain, and I do think that it definitely translates to the other players as well. Vice captain, though, I don't know who else I would have made vice captain, because really, like, you're not going to give vice captain to someone that just arrived in summer. And Conor Gallagher wasn't in the mix at all for that either, because I mean we were basically selling him near transfer deadline day. So he definitely wasn't in the talks either. And I'm trying to think really hard here, but who else could we have made vice captain?
That's the thing. There's like everybody's new, so
Yeah.
maybe
Welcome to
Enzo, but
the
he
team,
was
guys.
at the club for 6 months. Really, so realistically, I I think that I would have had maybe Thiago Silva as captain, like you said, to at least give yourself another season to evaluate candidates and kind of see who's available, who's stepping up, because you could have these players coming in breakthrough moments. That's probably going to be Thiago Silva's last season. And one of the arguments that I saw against Thiago Silva at the beginning of the season was that he's not going to be playing every game. Well, he's been playing almost every game for Chelsea. So it's not even like an argument anymore. And Ben Chilwell is another one that I personally like. I love Ben Chilwell. I love Reece James as players. And I think that they're so talented. I don't think that it's a coincidence that Chelsea had like one of our best seasons in terms of like going on to win the Premier League and getting to all of these finals, obviously under Tuchel. But when both Reece James and Ben Chilwell were fit, and now I can't remember, I think that was realistically the last time that they were fit for a period of time together. Or maybe they've played one or two games together, but I can't remember a time when they've been consistently fit over the past 2 years, which is super mind-blowing as well.
Yeah, no, that's actually crazy. It is, and it kind of makes you worry as well about, yeah, okay, you will wait for their return, but what if they're not at their best again? That's perfectly realistic. I think maybe Reece James is delaying surgery because you just never know after surgery. God forbid, but it's not always ever the same. And not only do you go through it mentally, you go through it physically as well. So it's difficult to say that you're going to be at your best when you do return. With Chilwell, it is kind of the same. And I think even on his last couple returns from injury, I wouldn't say he was at his very best. And, it wasn't long until he was out again. But yeah, I think it is a real problem, especially in those two positions where you want your fullbacks to be, especially like considering now in the Premier League, teams, a lot of them play out the back and you build up from the back. Those are really integral positions that you need. And what better than two players that have been at Chelsea as long as they have? But if they're not fit, you don't have them there. So it's tricky.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's like one of the biggest woes of Chelsea's injury crisis. I think that obviously with Reece James, we have Malagusto as a right back, as the backup, so to speak, but obviously he's out injured again. But then in that left back spot, for me personally, don't feel that Kukurea brings the same thing that Ben Chilwell does. I know that Chilwell wasn't having like his best games. He was playing more of this like a left winger before he got injured. And what about Levi Colwill filling at left back? That's certainly been an interesting one as well. And I've kind of noticed that sometimes I feel that he's out of position because
Yeah.
he gets kind of dragged and he's not really sure where he's meant to be on the pitch. And I feel like for a couple of goals now, I've seen that it's a theme that the defenders in general aren't shutting down the balls, but I've noticed Colwell as well hasn't been shutting down. What are your thoughts on him playing at left back and maybe like him in general?
Yeah, I don't think he's been terrible. I think he has, where he's been given and assigned the job to do that, he's done well on the most part. And to be fair, again, I cut him more slack because I can't imagine a player that young, because he's still very young. Yes, had a brilliant season at Brighton, but that doesn't mean you've suddenly got it all up your sleeve to be able to be versatile and play here and there, particularly at Chelsea, returning straight away. But on the most part, he's done well, but I do get what you mean. Sometimes he's not that positionally aware. And I almost saw a moment, I think it was against Tottenham, Kulusevski's first goal. Like Levi Colwill ran back, and for a moment, he didn't really know what ground he was covering as well. And it was a moment where you see him thinking. And again, that's obviously the manager instructing you to do that. So he's done well on the most part. Yeah, at times maybe has left that left side a bit more vulnerable, but for a player that doesn't play there, how much can you really blame him? You know, he's only sort of performed and lived up to what he's been expected to do. Is he a left back? No, he's not. Should he be a left back moving forward? I don't think so. But frankly, like, what other options do we have right now? So it's interesting. I do prefer him as a left centre back, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be there to stay with all of the injuries that we have now. And we have this comment from Rixia, and they said, "What are your views on Sanchez, who's Brighton's third choice keeper before they sold him?" I saw you make a face. So, what do you think about Rob Sanchez so far for Chelsea?
You know what? I think maybe the Forest game, which would have been so long ago now, was the day I made a video saying that I don't think Robert Sanchez is good enough for Chelsea. And he wasn't even bad in that game. But for me, it just goes beyond that. I don't think Robert Sanchez is a keeper that you contend for top four, let alone challenge for the title. Ain't no way. However, I think, yes, he's done well, but at times people have praised him for saving his own mistakes. And I'm like, well done. You literally gave the ball away to a player of the other team and you saved their shot. You know, congratulations. Thank you so much. And at times he looks unsure, like distribution has been questionable. He'll either kick it out of play or it will go to someone else. And, you know, your goalkeeper is that position where you need solidity, you need consistency, you need reliability. But again, I do give him some leeway because he came as someone that was meant to, you know, compete with Kepa as a number 2 goalkeeper. And then Kepa left the door, went to Madrid 1 week later, and they said, here you go, Robert Sanchez, you're starting against Liverpool. So I do cut him some slack because of that, you know, considering he didn't play at Brighton, considering he wasn't a favoured goalkeeper there. On the most part, like I said, he's done well. I think he's much better at shot stopping, but distribution and footwork can be a little bit questionable there as well. I'm not buying it. I'm not completely sold on Sanchez. Obviously, he's here to stay right now, but I don't think that he's a keeper that Chelsea need for this project. If this is what we're going with, we need to address a keeper. And here we go. We're having another conversation about bringing someone new in. And it's like, how and why are we doing this again?
How is it possible? Yeah, the thing is, like, I don't know what keeper, I just have no idea, like, what keepers would realistically go for. Do you have anybody in mind? Do you know, like, I can't think of any, like, that's thankfully not my job. But I think that that's one of the hardest positions. I know that Gaga Selena is on loan. He's another young one from the States that is earmarked as having high potential. So maybe we could potentially see him coming in a couple of years. But in the short term, I honestly have no idea who you bring in. We have a question here from Owen who says, do you think Nkunku's return will change much? And I thought that he was fantastic in preseason. And I went to the Brighton game in preseason. And my mom and my sister were with me. They don't watch 1 ounce of football. And my mom was like, oh, I like that guy. Like, whatever number he was wearing. She was like, he's the star. Like, he's so good. I was like, yeah, Mom, he's our new signing. Like, good job. Like, he's meant to be doing good. He's meant to score goals. So I've seen a lot of people kind of say, do you think that he's going to change things? He is a proven goal scorer, another young one, not necessarily a striker, plays better as maybe a 10 or having a striker to play off of. But what are your thoughts on Nkunku hopefully coming back into the mix? And who do you think that drops out of that starting 11 to bring him in as well?
Yeah, obviously I'm very excited for his return. I just feel a bit sorry for the guy because so much pressure is already on his shoulders and he hasn't even like made it back into the team. And how sad is it that we've placed all our bets and optimism on this one player that we brought in who was only just meant to be a part of the puzzle, and now we've made him the main character here. He's got to be the one that comes in and changes everything. Who knows, maybe Chelsea's process is back on track when Nkunku is back. But I mean, it's just honestly like crazy to think, yes, he's got the quality. Yes, he's proven to be a good goal scorer, a good playmaker. Supposedly, apparently can play as a striker, but I think we'll make him more of a number 10, sort of behind the striker. I keep saying maybe we see more of Jackson's game when Nkunku's back, because they had that good relationship forming on the pitch, good chemistry with their link-ups. Maybe he's, I don't know, Jackson looks better when Nkunku's back. But there is also the fear that you never know. You just never know, especially at Chelsea. I always say you're a world class player, striker, forwards, whatever, until you come to Chelsea and you replicate exactly what you did at your former club. So I think that's the biggest question there. And like I said, it is not the greatest thing to have and to almost put all your faith in this one player that we still realistically have not seen in the Premier League. You know, preseason is another thing, and we obviously have that as an example because we've seen how we've gone in the Prem recently. But you know, we're putting all our faith in this one player, and hopefully, I mean, it seems that Pochettino made him sort of the main character in preseason as well, because it kind of seemed like we didn't really have a solid plan B to Nkunku getting injured because nobody expected it. And then we saw obviously some changes in lineup, some players maybe dropping off a little bit. But to answer your question about who gets dropped, this is what I was saying, because Gallagher, we've been playing as a sort of 10, haven't we? And Gallagher's been exceptional up until, you know, the last couple games. I think he is Pochettino's favourite player, and I just think in no world will he ever drop Gallagher. You know, I mean, he basically reps the captain armband. You know, he will consistently give you the press and the runabout, and I guess that's what we've, you know, needed. He's become a lot better technically on the ball as well, which is a big improvement from last season with Gallagher. But in that case, you can't play Palmer and Sterling and a striker, whether it be Jackson or Breuer. So you've got to drop someone, you know, and then that means Mudryk as well. Where does he come into the mix? So it has to be a case of maybe making Palmer sort of a winger and then finding out who plays better, Sterling or Mudryk on the left, and then potentially playing. No, but then there you go. Unless you drop Gallagher into deeper into midfield, you can't play them all. And that's the question. It's a welcome problem to have, don't get me wrong. And if I had to drop anyone, I'd drop Sterling. I don't really, you know, mind. I'd rather give Mudryk that. But, you know, if Jackson continues to perform the way he does, just playing Kunku up top, I don't care.
Yeah, I think it, like, I'm glad that I'm not the one who has to make this decision. Like,
thank God.
Thank God. That's why Poch gets paid the big bucks. But it's an interesting problem, and I'm curious, like, if we're going to see some information, how he's going to adjust this, because I think you're right that in preseason it all felt like super dependent on Nkunku, and I felt that especially Nkunku and Jackson were developing this really nice chemistry, and it seemed like they were playing off of each other well, and they were both getting goals and assists and for each other. And so I'm curious to see if maybe he sticks with that, because that's the vision that he had in preseason. Maybe that takes a bit of the pressure off of Nico Jackson as well, because he's not meant to be an out and out striker either. I think he played as a winger for Villarreal. And I think it must be extremely hard to be bought to be playing for a La Liga team and then come in and try to be the main man at Chelsea with all of this pressure on your shoulders of, oh, I have to score a goal. And when you have somebody else who's a capable goal scorer and also like regarded as one of the people that are going to be scoring goals, then maybe that takes the pressure off of him and helps him to like feel a bit better, because I feel like Jackson at the moment is overthinking a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe that could help. But yeah, I honestly don't know who you take out, because I was thinking at the start of the season, surely Gallagher or Palmer. But they've both been two of Chelsea's best players. So yeah, interesting. We also have like Carney Chukwuemeka, who I totally forgot.
God, yeah, I forgot about him.
Injured forever as well, and he was
good. He was good, yeah.
So I think like if Chelsea get these players back that were showing good signs, like maybe there's room for something. I don't know. I'm just trying to be
We are down bad, Ellie. We're down bad.
Yeah. Credit to saying here, Chukwuemeka as Kev. Sorry if I butchered his name. I actually think you spelled it right. And Nkunku as the striker would be my ideal lineup. I actually don't know when he's meant to come back from injury. I didn't realize.
We keep getting teased, don't we? I mean, we see him. No, he wasn't in training, was he? No, he hasn't been in training. It was Lavia that was in training, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think Lavia's been back in training. I'm not sure if he might have had a setback, but I didn't think that.
Typical.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be making that up. But I didn't think Chukwuemeka was going to be out for so long. It's been at least 3 months now, which is
West Ham, wasn't it? He scored against West Ham, and then that's the game he got injured, was it?
Yeah, that was devastating. Ryan says, and Cuckoo has got to make a difference, or else I really don't know how we're going to get out of that. It's hard to even have hope, but I will do. I totally feel you, and I feel like I'm hyping myself up and just like getting excited for the next game.
Do you know, Ellie, do you know who this reminds me of? Do you remember when we signed Joao Felix in January and we looked at him the same way? Oh my God, I remember the day that I saw him in the squad against Fulham, was it his first game? And I was like, yes, like this is so exciting. Like he's here to save the season, and he looked so good, didn't he? I feel like that's the same, like how we're treating Kunku. Like you've got to be the main character here. Like we are so deprived of happiness right now. You've got to make it better. No pressure. Oh.
Hopefully he does not get a red card in his
don't say that. Was that his debut game that he had the red card?
Yeah, I think it was. Apparently Chukwuemeka unknown return date according to FPL app.
So. Oh, thanks for the source.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think that's interesting as well. We'll see. I have my hopes up. We've gotten pics of Nkuku in training, but they're like teasing us that he's coming back. So I have hopes. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about was Poch's press conference, because I think it might have been maybe taken a bit out of context, but I'll just read the quote so everybody here can see it as well. He said, after the first half of the season, we need to check that's the reality. If we're not aggressive enough, maybe we need to do something, some movement. That's something we need to analyze with the sporting directors, owners, and see what we can do to change this dynamic. We need to be more aggressive. It's not only to dominate and play well, it's to compete better. It's a massive assessment from the beginning of the season. And then when the transfer window opens, we'll see what we can do. I'm not saying I'm going to ask for more or less players, but to see if the perception matches the reality. If the expectation is here and reality is here, it's because we're missing something in the middle. Maybe we need to improve our reality. So it kind of sounds a bit like he's saying maybe 5 more players. I'm not quite sure. What do you think of those quotes from Poch after the Everton game?
Sounds like a load of waffle. No, you know when someone says so much but you don't actually understand what the point is? I kind of feel that way. And you know, another thing I was wondering is, do you think that they actually talk like with the owners? Like to me, it sounds like he's kind of calling out for them to work better together as a collective. But are you actually having to speak out to the public to be able to get that conversation? Like, do these conversations not really happen? Like, are you on the same page with what you want and where we're headed, or do you guys just not see each other? Like, do you WhatsApp? I don't know. I always just sort of wonder. But yeah, it does. You're right. To me, it sounds, I agree with you, that he is kind of shouting out for a player, or another 2, maybe 3. You know, I think he said something about a defender, maybe about a striker as well. And it's like, I can't believe we're still looking out. You know, we need to be looking inside the club. There's problems internally. There's problems within the squad at the moment. There's problems of mentality, discipline, all this. Why do we keep looking elsewhere to fix our problems? You know, frankly, we're going to continue buying until we eventually maybe find some sort of solution. You know, that's not the case. We already have players that are unhappy. It's been 3 months and there's already players that are trying. I don't know whether it's real or not. Don't trust me on this, but apparently Noni Madueke is trying to push out a move away from Chelsea in January is what I heard. Yeah, that I literally read this morning and I was like, I can't believe it's already gotten to the stage where we have players that are unhappy and you want to go buy more. Where are we going here? Like, actually, where are we going here? I mean, can you blame him, Ellie? I know he was injured, but then he fell out with Poch and he just hasn't really played.
Yeah, I know. He's another one that I was like kind of wondering what happened to him, because I know he had the I think it was the under-21 World Cup, and so then he wasn't in training, and then he got injured, and he really hasn't featured. And I thought that he was at least one of the bright sparks for us at the end of last season, albeit looking super raw, but I liked that he was willing to at least like take people on. And I thought that he looked good for England as well. And the last thing I think that you want is to have the dressing room so overcrowded, like how we did last season, where we just had that massive spending spree in January, and then you had a billion new players coming in and they didn't even have room to change because there were too many players. Like I just don't think that we should be buying anybody. Maybe a goalkeeper. Like at some point, that's kind of the
Yeah.
only position that I'm really looking at. A lot of people are saying striker as well. I feel like we do have a lot of attackers, even if we don't have like necessarily an out and out striker. What do you make of that? Do you think that Chelsea need a striker at the moment?
Well, I mean, it seems that way. We need everything, don't we? Gosh, I can't. I'm reaching my delirious stage now. If you couldn't tell, but I was so open to giving Jackson a chance, and kind of going with the ideology of if we are giving young players a chance, then give him the chance. I said no to Vlahovic in summer because I just thought, what we've seen from Jackson is pretty good. Let's see how it goes into the Prem. I mean, we were all sold, weren't we? He scored some goals. He looked bright. He looked good in build up. I like the fact that he was a striker that sort of came from deep and didn't just linger at the top waiting to be fed balls. And I mean, I was bought, I was sold, and the fact that now it's not gone as smoothly. I'm not even going to hail him because of that hat trick against Tottenham. Well done. I could have done that too, but he scored against Man City. He scored obviously against Brighton. He scored here and there, but frankly, he's still costing us so much. And even against Everton, honestly, I just question how much thinking time do you need on the ball. Striker instinct means that when you are fed the ball, you need to just take a touch and put it away. It's easier said than done, obviously, but he overplays it at times. He overcomplicates it for himself, and it's like you're doing too much. And at times, you can almost see how much thinking time he has on the ball. And yeah, I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to dribble it into the net? Like, come on. But in terms of striker, it looks like we don't have a prolific striker even still. After all the money spent, reality is Broyer's not going to bag you 25 goals, and neither is Jackson, it seems. So, yeah, we probably do need to address a striker. And to be fair, if there's one player I can buy, it will be a good striker. We don't need anything else, really.
Yes.
A goalkeeper, yeah, striker, goalkeeper. There you go, two ends of the pitch.
Yeah, two ends of the pitch.
Two ends of the pitch.
Mad to me because somebody in the comments mentioned Lukaku, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot he's like so technically on Chelsea's books as well. I was kind of looking up stats. So Nico Jackson, he scored 6 goals so far this season. Obviously, 3 were against the 9-man Spurs, so take it that what you will. But Havertz scored 7 goals for Chelsea in all of last season. So kind of going up to Havertz territory, like, I don't know, like maybe not as bad as we think.
Upgrades, I say.
But there's something that we've like sorely missed is a player who's even going to score 10 goals consistently a season. We haven't had, you talk about players that are going to score 20 plus goals for you. We haven't had somebody that's going to score 10 plus goals for us recently. It's just
Ellie, do you know what the problem is though? What world class striker wants to come to Chelsea right now? Which world class striker? I wanted Victor Osimhen, but I don't imagine in what world, out of any club that he could have, because he's got potential for days, he could have Europe, he could have trophies, he could have anything he likes. Why on earth would he come to Chelsea? And I like to think he likes us, he likes the club. Does he believe in the process? I don't know. Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney is getting older and older. He wants to play regular football. He wants to be challenging. He probably wants to win a trophy when he makes his long-awaited return back into football. Why would he want to come to Chelsea? So we are faced with a bigger problem here with this dip in form is the fact that we're not going to attract players anymore. We're not going to attract really good sort of well-established, shiny strikers, if you like, because that's just reality. What's the dream? Hello, we'd like to sign you. We are currently 12th in the Premier League. We're not in Europe. We look so far away from it. We might maybe win the Carabao Cup, but we'll see how that goes because, we're playing Newcastle. So we'll let you know at the end of that. Oh, and by the way, we might not be in Europe next season as well. But you know what? We've got this shiny process here. We all love each other so much. Come to Chelsea. Are you sold? Are you sold? I'm getting angry.
Yeah, like it's that puts it into perspective. I'm like, oof.
Mm-hmm. If you don't think, it's fine. It's when you think about it quite a bit is the problem.
I know. I like maybe it's delirious. So I would low-key love Ivan Toney. I think he's such a good player. I think he's such a good player. If somehow Chelsea made it happen, but I'm kind of keen to just see how Nkunku gets on. See if we kind of sort things and then like reassess because I don't want us to be spending money stupidly, and it kind of feels like the season is already gone from us in December, even though we still are in some cup competitions. Do you have any hope for the Carabao Cup or for the FA Cup?
I like to think so. I mean, winning like winning seems very far, like obviously far reach right now. But I backed us to do well in the Carabao Cup. You know, when we beat Brighton, like we had a decent game against Blackburn as well. So obviously we've got the FA Cup campaign starting too soon. I mean, is that going to be a healthy distraction? You know, there's already been like serious opposition knocked out the Carabao Cup. Maybe we have a chance. That's a big maybe. But then again, you've got to beat Newcastle to even go through and have that conversation too. So it's difficult. It's really hard right now to say that we can, but if we get anywhere near playing a final this season, that will still raise a little bit self-esteem, I think, in the club. And I keep saying, no matter what trophy it is, Carabao, FA Cup, these young players need to have a taste of winning, of lifting a trophy, seeing what it takes to compete, to make them hungrier and to show them that it is possible to go into next season. But if we are so far off, it's hard to keep these young players motivated and convince them to work their socks off to get there. But I mean, right now it seems difficult. I mean, but I would back us to do better in a domestic cup than we are in the league right now. Yeah.
I hope so, and I hope that that kind of gives the player something to fight for, like you said, because it does. Like I would hope that they're still fighting. It felt like at the end of last season they totally gave up and we're just like, okay, there's nothing left to fight for. But you can still fight for European places, and I really hope that we're instilling that mentality. And like you said, instilling the mentality to win and to win trophies, because that's a large part of Chelsea's culture and what we're about. Jack Player here says, we have players that have the quality and can develop into good players, but when I watch games, I only see us keeping possession but no attacking threat whatsoever. Poch needs to implement a game plan. I do feel like we do create opportunities, though, not necessarily against Everton so much. I didn't see it, but up until that point, I felt that we did create opportunities, but that we just weren't like so clinical in. But we just don't have somebody who I look at as and says, okay, they're going to score. It looks like we're trying to pass the ball into the back of the net a bit. It looks like that. It just kind of feels like no matter how many shots we take, it's always a little bit off or off target or a little, like it just doesn't feel like it's necessarily lining up for us.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I on such a roller coaster in this stream.
I know, and it's late, so thank you so much for joining me. I know you have to run.
Oh, I've had fun. Don't you worry.
As well. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you like this. I'll be back every Monday at 7 p.m. UK time, streaming here and talking about Chelsea. If you like this video, drop it a like so that other people can find it and hear our chat as well. Make sure to sub to the channel because we're really trying to grow and put out content despite the place that Chelsea are in at the moment. So hope you guys low-key kind of appreciate that. Nina, thank you so freaking much for joining me. And any last thoughts? Plug away.
Through thick and thin, we'll be here, won't we, Ellie? Grinding it out. Yes, nothing to add.
Cool. So I put all of Nina's socials in the description box down below, so you'll be able to find her there, as well as in the title here. She has an awesome YouTube channel. And yeah, I'll be back this week with more videos, more content for Chelsea. Hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever time you end up watching this. And until next time, we're out. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.